never know what will happen at Worlds.
The stage is set, the curtain is drawn.
没人能够预见会是这种情况。
This is the game people want to see.
新的王者诞生了
Kaboom! They've lit the fuse.
你看到了吗
They're gonna win. This is it.
说实话是没有想过会在半决赛遇到斯沃拉特，因为我也是第一次踏上半决赛的舞台嘛。一直以来我们打这些的梦想都是一起放在世界冠军上嘛，可能这个目标对我们来说都是稍微有点难度的。然后我们一路走过来也都不容易嘛，想不到我们见面还是在，就是我们两个还是要在互相厮杀的情况下。
Sonic Wave raising extract, flash away under the tower. First blood to top esports.
Carson gets it going early.
我希望让他看到，可能过这几年之后变化的我。这次我也会把握好机会，然后也给你看一下，就是你离开闪亮之后，我也有一些成长吧。然后这次会打赢你。
That was their window.
But now the TP's coming in. Oh, now there is your ulti, but Yagao, he's in a bad spot.
What a hook from Sorter. The timing.
因为我们只有一边能踏上总决赛的舞台，然后也希望踏上去那个人能够完成我们两个一直以来的梦想吧。
Fnatic want to make it to semifinals. The blast code is available. Hop forward.
Karsa is going absolute god mode to pull this game back. Sword Art shows up here. Some of that playmaking I'm talking about. The damage comes through.
Guangfeng rooted immediately out of the ult. That was beautiful.
작년에 저희가 8강에서 G2한테 아쉽게 져서 떨어진 날부터 계속 다시 만나고 싶었고 그 기회가 이번에 다시 와서 이번에는 꼭 저희가 이기도록 하겠습니다.
The Diamond players are super eager to face off against us. They took last year's defeat very personally. For us, it was just another BO5. I feel like they really hunger for blood.
Showmaker flashes forward, and now in comes Damwon, obliterating. The assuredness of this win is going to be striking fear into G2.
There's no second chances. If you lose now, you'll have to wait a full year until you get to compete again. And I'm done waiting. I have this picture in my head of me holding the trophy, and I'll do anything to see that dream come true.
Ignite ticking on caps, uses the stopwatch to dodge the spear. He's going to come back up and with the ammo, oh my god! Oh, that is disgusting! G2 stand tall, they are looking to be the LCK killers once again.
Trying to get control here. Showmaker throws his own ultimate back. Canyon grabs the kill in Damwon, looking absolutely unstoppable. Where is that? It's in!
He's in the
enemy base!
He don't miss. And as one star falls from the LPL, another will rise. Suiting Gaming, a team to remember.
It's a flash away. Whoa! The resonating strike. Self-made packing. Karsa is going to set himself up with a showdown against Sword Art. One more year in a row, we are guaranteed an LPL representative in the final.
Welcome everyone to Worlds Countdown ahead of our first semi-final. What an exquisite video to get us set up for this weekend, because 1 month has passed and at the end of the road, the 4 best teams on the planet remain in the fight for the Summoners Cup. Now today, Shanghai is the stage for a much anticipated rematch as LCK champions Damwon look to get their revenge on LEC champions G2 Esports. I am still reeling from that video, ready to get into this weekend. I'm Shox, joined by Vedius and Yamato. I'm sure you both share this sentiment.
Oh,
Oh!
very exciting.
The
I'm
showmaker.
so ready.
Yes,
It's
there's so many moments. Yeah.
Start the games now. That would be great. I'm very excited.
But no, you have to listen to Vedius for
Yeah,
another
you do.
30
You do.
minutes, I know. But we're going to make it worth your while. Let's first talk about how we got here. Last week, we kicked off the knockout stage with 4 quarterfinal matchups, and in the end, Top Esports, Suning, Damwon, and G2 all made it to the next round. We had some bangers, we had some doozies, but these are the 4 teams that came out.
Yeah, for sure. I think the top 4 teams at the tournament definitely went through. The first thing that comes to mind when you speak of bangers is, of course, Top Esports versus Fnatic. My goodness, this is the first reverse sweep in the world's history. I think that series coming into it, I thought it was going to be 3-0 for Top Esports, but Fnatic fought hard, and I think it's bittersweet for a lot of Fnatic fans because they had so much hope after that 2-0.
It was kind of a 3-0 for Top, only in the back half of the series. Many people believe that Fnatic had it in the bag, myself perhaps included, but it just shows off the resilience of Top to come back and win 3 games in a row.
Yeah, I think it also exemplifies the individual talent that does exist on this roster, and I think it's going to be very exciting watching them rematch against Suning, because this is the dark horse that I think many didn't quite anticipate to make it into this star, but many believed had the potential to do so. Their series versus JDG, I thought, was in a very similar fashion to Yamato's Top Esports prediction, was kind of one-sided in favor of JDG. The one thing that we didn't know is that these 2 teams had not met very often during the regular season, only playing a few best-of-3s and never meeting in a best-of-5 matchup, but the time that we did get to see it, it was just a Suning show from beginning to end.
I think it's fair to say that JDG definitely underperformed based off of everyone's expectations. This was the hardest draw Suning could have pulled because they were the #1 seed facing off against JDG that has a higher seed if you look at the standings coming into the tournament. And Suning just mechanically outplayed them because that was time and time again just a mechanical skill check because that was what the game was about, and Suning definitely delivered.
It was great, and for Suning, it's the story of kind of how they are developing and what their ceiling may or may not be. So that match tomorrow is going to be super hype, and also for Top. Now you've gone through the fire. You were down 0-2. You came back. You know that you can do that. That must also give them a lot of confidence going into these next rounds. But today we've got G2 versus Damwon, and Damwon and G2 on the other side of the bracket. It was quite a different story. Not really the bangers that we expected or may have hoped, but 2 clean 3-0s.
Yeah, I think that what we saw was complete domination and a clear class difference between G2, Damwon, and their opponents in Gen.G and DRX. And I think that that goes to show that neither team necessarily had to show a lot in coming into this semi-final, which I think makes it all the more exciting when both teams still have things yet to be seen, I think, which is going to be very anticipating for this best-of-5.
I think with Gen.G and DRX, it was just the stylistic matchup that they had to face up against. I think Gen.G, a very classic LCK team, which G2 always dominates. And then, of course, DRX, we've already seen that best-of-5.
We have.
So it was just unlucky for Gen.G and DRX. But if you want to get through quarters, no matter what matchup you have or had, was going to be tough because looking at these top 4 teams, my goodness.
Yeah, we have some spicy top 4 teams, all fantastic in their own right, and also some top performances last week. And with last week's series fresh in mind, Vedius is going to give us his top players to look at going into the semis.
Elbow. Boom. Yeah, let's talk about some of our top players that we saw in the quarterfinals starting. Well, the man in the jungle for Top Esports, it is Karsa. This guy has been on a tear from beginning to so far in the tournament. He can play carries, he can help his team, he can gank, he does it all. And if you look at him for too long, he may very well just steal your heart. This man is playing wonderfully right now, and I'm very excited to see what he can do when they rematch up against Suning, as they did during the domestic playoffs. Now, another LPL player that we have to highlight is Huan Feng. This man has had a beautiful story from his beginning of his pro career to where he's at now. His very first year at Worlds, and he's already making a name for himself. His performance in team fights is exquisite. His positioning is reliable, and he is consistently a key carry for this team. While he may not be the most shining in terms of playmaking, he is what Suning needs to make success happen, and he's going to be very important in their matchup against Top tomorrow. Our final player is, of course, Caps. This man showcased that even in a meta that is not about the mid laners, he can still make it about the mid laners. Caps is putting on star performances left, right, and center, and right now, I think he is the best performing mid laner at this tournament. Sylas cannot be allowed to be put in this man's hands, otherwise he's going to do some crazy stuff, because Caps had one of the most dominant performances we've ever seen from him, and also earned the honor of our Red Bull top play. Let's check out that terrifying Sylas.
Ignite ticking on Caps, uses the stopwatch to dodge the spear. He's going to come back up, and with the ammo, oh my god! Oh, that is disgusting! That is the most illegal ammo I have ever seen. Clint dives in, Rascal dives in, but they've already done, and Caps is still alive, and he's almost back up to full HP.
He makes it look easy, and it isn't, because I had the chance to look at some Clash games that some of the gentlemen here on the couch played, and Yamato had a Sylas, and it didn't look anything like that. So maybe you can speak to how impressive it is.
Yeah, why you gotta do me like that? And I watched Caps Pro View. It was a Pro View. I found it on YouTube. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. Who cares? It was a Pro View, and just his mouse movement was so beautiful because a lot of those chains were framed perfect, and it's just beautiful to watch.
It was
quite good at League of
I'm so sorry, Yamato. Just kidding, of course. I love that you highlighted also these players. The quality of players is so high remaining in kind of the top 4 at Worlds that you really need to go above and beyond to even outshine them. And that's what I'm actually most excited about for these semifinals, and especially for today, because today's series is a rematch we have all been waiting for. So be sure to join us for an extended preview after this.
Again, I would belay the crown, but count us higher than a mountain, and we be up here for the long run, strap in for a long one. We got everybody on one. Now you coming at the king, so you better not miss. And we only get stronger with everything I carry up on my back. You should paint it up with a target. Why would you dare me to do it again? it back, run it back. I got bodies lining up, think you're dreaming of greatness. Send you back home, let you wake up. Why would you dare me to do it again? Come and get your spoiler out the head. We're taking over.
Welcome back, everyone, to Worlds Countdown. Let's get into it. We used almost the whole time in that break to talk to each other about how excited we are about this best of 5 because we have 2 amazing teams facing off. We're so hyped. Let's talk about how they got here and the big stories. Of course, for 1 year, Damwon have been craving revenge, and today they get their chance as they face off against G2 in an epic rematch. Last year at the World Championship, Damwon were eliminated by G2 in Madrid in the quarterfinals. But we've got a different Damwon on our hands, and in summer, they really rose up as the new top team from the LCK.
You know, if someone told me at the beginning of this year that, you know, Damwon will be the strongest LCK team coming into this tournament, I would be like, please, stop right there. Coming into spring, you know, they lost the best of 5 against DRX, but they just continued and continued to ramp up in summer. They really, really found their groove. They lost the first best of 3 they played against DRX, and DRX in the beginning was looking like the strongest team. But then it was super, super clear because back-to-back 2-0s after 2-0s, they were beating all the other top teams and ended on a scoreline of, I believe, like 38-5, something absurd in terms of win ratios. Best of 3s, just winning 2-0, 2-0, 2-0 was incredible to see, and that's why what they are looking at like one of the favorites.
It is the new generation of LCK talent. It is that growth and development that they have made to now be in a position to bring LCK to former glory. They are in a position to take it to the World Finals, which the LCK haven't been in for the last 2 years, and they get to do it by taking down G2, which is like the best anime storyline that you can ask for, because G2 have been the thorn in many teams' side, except for the LPL. But I think that what is great is how often they still are able to overcome many of these challenges. And when we look at this G2 squad, they're kind of the opposite of Damwon, in that they were built to succeed from the beginning. They took star players from everywhere. Mickey was added to the roster, Perks moved down to the bot lane, Caps joins in the mid. Like, this was a team that was built to succeed, and within their first year, all they found was success.
They did, and if you look at it now, they won everything there is to win outside of the World Championship, and that heartbreak was so big last year versus FPX. So for to them, it doesn't matter who's in their way. They need to get a new chance in the final in their heads, and they're up versus the Damwon, who think if we take you down, we make it to our first World Final. And it would be crazy from both sides, both from Damwon, who was in Challenger in LCK 2 years ago, could now be in the World Final, and G2 could again be there after 1 year. Like, the stories write themselves. That is really great, but the matchup is also analytically stacked from top to bottom. So let's go over every single lane and talk about where either team could find the advantage. First up, in the top lane, and it's already a marquee matchup, Nabari versus Wonder. Yamato, sell it to us.
My goodness, the last time they faced off against each other, Nuguri was a klepto abuser. It's no longer the same. Wonder is such a player that adapts towards the opposition in a very strong way, but now Nuguri is so well-rounded in his play. I think the difference maker is a lot of the European top lanes, including Wonder, have a very strong champion pool against the Ornn. Nuguri has a very strong Ornn, but he hasn't seen the likes of a Shen or maybe a Sai on top, or even the Sylas. The Sylas may be common in the LCK. When I compare these two, I think Wonder in an Ornn meta, when Ornn is open, I think he's going to be stronger. But when Ornn is banned, and all of a sudden the Camille and the Renekton and the Cannon is going to be enabled, I think Nuguri gets an edge. But the key thing is, a lot of these champion pools are overlapping, and the differences still with an edge are still very minimal.
Yeah, and it's all about the adaptation in the best of 5. And I think when I look across the matchup, this might be one of the lanes where we might see the craziest things in terms of diversity as this best of 5 evolves. But you can never talk about the top laners on an island. It's so much about the junglers, especially in this tournament. And then we first got to talk about Canyon for Damwon. He has been destroying the opposition so far.
He wasn't on my players to watch, but he's going to be the player to watch.
Future?
Exactly that. He's going to be the player to watch in this series today because of how talented he is. And I wanted to grab this clip and show everyone what makes Canyon such a good player. And in a situation like this, DRX actually have the pushing bot lane, but they mess up. They lose their flash. They're punished due to a good trade from Coast and Beryl. Canyon realizes the position that he's in, and he can look to take advantage of it. Knowing that he has a push priority in the mid lane, knowing that his bot lane has reclaimed some control, he can actually now threaten to invade. And look how he just nonchalantly walks in, knows he has the support from his team should he needs it, and he's just going to steal away this blue buff from Piochik. And this is just one of many examples where you can find Canyon reading the state of the map and just responding perfectly.
In the current meta, for me, I think Canyon is the reason why Damwon is looking like the potential favorite in this matchup. In the current meta, it's so much about the jungler, and I feel like he makes the job of playing the game for his teammates so easy. And then looking at the task at hand for Jankos, I think the story for Jankos is his experience. I think when you look at the player like Jankos, within the span of a week, he can fix weaknesses. He can fix problems because he's gone down those paths so many times. And I think that's the same for whole G2. And I think we need to see Jankos continue that line because between group stage and quarters, he improved. He needs to continue that improvement in order to put up a fight against Canyon.
Yeah, Canyon firing on all cylinders from game one. Jankos more of a development, and we'll see how that all plays out now. Then let's move over to the mid lane. Logically, you already had a little highlight about Caps earlier, but now he's up against the other, or one of the strongest mids in the tournament remaining, Showmaker.
So for me, there's actually a huge mid lane discrepancy here. I think that coming into the tournament, I think there was warranted a lot of respect being shown to Showmaker, and many even rated him as a stronger performer than Caps. But I think that in this tournament meta, which is very much where you have to play more for your team, Caps is the outlier. He is continuing to roam around the map. He is continuing to impact so much more than I think any other mid laner has at this tournament. And I think that right now, Caps is hungry and thriving to go for another World Final and to get that title. And I think that he is performing out of his mind right now.
I think Cap's biggest strength in comparison to the other mid laners is just his vision for the game and how to take a lead and blow that up completely. We've seen that Cap so many times regionally and also at this tournament. But looking at Showmaker, I think he is the one, together with Ghost, that brings stability to the table. He's not going to take risk if he has an advantage. He's going to be able to, together with Damwon, wait patiently for those moments. You can see his play pattern really varies depending on what position in the game Damwon is in. And I feel like Showmaker hasn't been pushed there because I just feel like Canyon makes it so easy for
It hasn't been necessary. So you disagree with Verius that there is a mid gap here?
I think it just, stylistically, they're very different. I think if Caps gets ahead, dangerous. But getting ahead against Showmaker and Canyon is going to be so difficult.
So much harder than versus the other teams they've played so far. Then let's move over to the bottom lane and let's talk about Perks, then the icon on G2, or the franchise player, let's put it, who was there since the very start and still fighting for that ultimate dream of a world championship.
I think it's just so wild. I remember back in 2016 when I faced up in scrims against Perks with his G2. I met him at an IEM in the past, and he was a rookie back then, and G2 just came in with fire and fury from the get-go. And I think that's the story of Perks. The story of G2 is the story of Perks. He's been the main man for the franchise, and considering they've won 6 out of the 8 titles that they've been playing in, that's absolutely wild. Only losing 2 of them to Caps, which is fine.
Yeah, and I think that what is crazy about Perks is during the regular season, he wasn't good, right? When we looked at this roster, many of us were pointing him as a potential weakness coming into the World Championship. But the thing about Perks is he always levels up at these international tournaments. He always has throughout his entire career when the pressure is on. That is when he performs, and now he's found the comfort in Jhin. Now we get to see some of the star performances that we expect from him, and he's going up against another star player in Ghost, who I think is pretty interesting because I think that as a player, not many eyes have been drawn towards him, but he's actually very aggressive in the bot lane. He's willing to fight you. I think the biggest difference between them is that experience. This is Ghost's first World Championship, and I think that when you contrast that to the experience of Perks, I wonder how he's going to handle the pressure.
You nailed it, Verius. You really nailed it. I think just the experience in terms of best of 5s, I think the experience both players have kind of talks about the experience of the teams.
Yeah.
The best of 5 experience is going to weigh heavily for G2. But looking at Ghost, I had the opportunity to speak with Joker because Ghost was on Sandbox previously, and he described Joker exactly the same way I would describe Perks. Very intelligent player, will never die to randomness, is willing to play a lot of different champions, plays the APs if he needs to, plays very good in the current meta. And I think there's some some similarities, because that's what I think of when I think of Perks. The clever TP plays, allowing your support to do as they please, because that's also been a trend for the last few years.
And it's been hinted at. Perks gave an interview where he's like, there's going to be some craziness. Perhaps it will occur here in the bot lane. When we talk about experience, let's talk about that for just a little bit in terms of both the best of fives played. We've only really seen Damwon versus DRX. G2 have more under their belt. And in terms of international games, excluding MSC this year, this is 417 games on the international stage for G2 combined versus 117 on the side of Damwon. That's a big difference, but I don't know. I'm inclined to say after last year, Damwon won't kind of struggle with that anymore because they've been through it, and it was, you know, there were 3,000 people there in Madrid. So I don't know if that'll be such a big influence. What do you guys think?
Well, I think that's the big debate, and it's going to be one of the biggest things for me in this best of five, because experience, I think, matters, but then we constantly see these new LPL teams rising to the top, who often don't have that experience, right? And we see Damwon, who have very little experience, continuing to rise to the top as well. So on my side, I think the experience weighs a lot, but I keep getting proven wrong. So we'll have to wait and see, because I think that it seems to me that it doesn't seem to matter as much for Damwon specifically.
I think you can gain a lot of confidence through experience, but I think the best type of confidence comes from good play.
Yeah, well, there we go. Another drop of wisdom from Yamato. You didn't think we forgot about the supports, did you? We would never. And our lane by lane overview. Let's get to the supports. Also so incredibly instrumental on both sides in Beryl and in Mickey.
I think Mickey has been the most consistent support at this tournament. I think time and time again, regardless of the shape of G2, Mickey has always delivered. I think his form has been impeccable, very, very good at roaming, and the same can be said for Beryl. I think the key difference for me when it comes to Beryl, though, I just saw a Pantheon and I assume Beryl. Mickey also plays it. Beryl, there's his Pantheon, there we go. I think Beryl brings a lot more variance. I mentioned how stable Showmaker and Ghost is. Beryl is the one that makes crazy things happen. Sometimes he runs it down, sometimes he finds genius. For those who are watching, can maybe compare him to maybe a Hylissang.
Yep.
And I think that for me, the support matchup is one of the most exciting matchups, just because we've been singing the praises of both these players throughout the tournament, and I think that we're going to only see more great plays from them. The way in which they work with their junglers, the way in which Mickey funnels more time into caps compared to Beryl, who spends a little bit more time with Canyon. I think that slight contrast in styles is going to be very interesting to watch, because both are looking to make plays, and it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, what's so cool is, like, we mentioned everything lane by lane, but then there's all the 2v2 matchups, the 3v3 matchups, the support coming into mid lane, the jungle top, the 2v2 mid. There's so many things that are going to matter. This is not a 1v1 tournament. It's all about the team play in the end. And I think this is where, looking at them as a whole, is where both of these teams are going to deliver.
And the expectation is that they're going to make each other shine because they are the best versus each other. Hopefully, they all turn up in this best of five. And Beryl, as we talked about, he is a key part also of Damwon's vision setup. And one of our colleagues is going to take a closer look at how they take control over the map.
My name is Barento Raz Mohammed as we're getting set up for the Damwon G2 series. Let's talk more Damwon. When we talk about Damwon, we talk about Showmaker, Nuggery, Canyon, etc. We get all of that. But what's not often mentioned for our #1 LCK representative is how calculated their setup is for neutral objectives and how creatively they play around Fog of War to squeeze and eke out positional advantages. This is something we've seen from them in the LCK, during groups, and in the series that I'll be highlighting in their 3-0 victory over DRX. I want to highlight their soul point setup in Game 1. It's important to identify that Damwon has a comp that wants open team fights, alongside strong pick options like Syndra, Jhin, Leona. So DRX's squishy lineup requires to have first touch on objective, or retaking vision will be nigh impossible. On Damwon's first deploy on the map, 20 minutes in, they have 3 sweeping lens with Graves picking it up, and Jhin heads top to accelerate the existing slow push, knowing that DRX's duo lane has just based late. This means 2 minutes before the objective, Damwon will have first push mid, Scuttle Crab, the first sweep of the objective, making it hard for DRX to contest because they just don't see Showmaker, Beryl, and Canyon on the map. They then make their final base at the same timing as the top wave crashes. DRX has 2 options here. Answer the top wave and not have first touch, or sack 3 waves of golden experience, and they choose the former, meaning Damwon once again gets first push through mid, can maintain the existing vision, and with the second round of sweeping lens, make their final prep. When DRX are finally ready to contest as a team, it already feels like an impossible task. Nuguri sweeps through the flank position up north. Showmaker dips in and out of fog down south, later linking up with Ghost as Graves is the sole member on Dragon. You got 2 control wards in Dot and Linebush to enter the river that DRX have to push through, and ordinarily in these situations, you see warm bodies, but DRX sees nothing. The previous work Damwon have put in creating, maintaining this vision has paid off, and there's no options for DRX to approach, no members to pick. And if you head straight forward, Syndra and Leona are in a perfect position to set up a flank, with Jin keeping range with ult. And if they press in either directions, north or south, to mark flankers, Graves will already have enough time to finish the Dragon, and those unaffected will commit to the flank as well. While Damwon have proven to have strong individuals, there are simply too many examples to show that their greatest strength lies in 3 things. In the setup of vision around the objective, in maintaining that vision through great wave manipulation, and also just being damn creative when they had the fog of war that they worked so hard to secure. Tonight, G2 will need to show the world that very few people have done, which is that we really do underestimate their power, or to just stop Damwon from getting the high ground. With more on the series, let's head back to the analyst desk with Shocks and hear more about this.
And so Raz makes an excellent point there, which is that Damwon are very controlled, very precise, and they're very good at what they do. However, this can also make them a little bit predictable. And I think that while he talks about some of the positives, let's talk about some of the negatives for Damwon and how G2 could potentially exploit this super powerhouse LCK team. Because one of the examples comes from DRX in their series, where they know that Damwon is trying to set up around a neutral objective. So they try to punish it. And they're willing to sacrifice some farm bot, sacrifice some farm mid, in order to actually contest for this red buff setup that is coming out from Damwon. And I think that this gave DRX a great team fight, which you typically wouldn't get against a Damwon Gaming because of how precise they are and how good their objective setup is. So I think this is one method with which you can actually attack Damwon with. I think another method which you can use is actually trying to attack them in terms of the skirmish style. When you look back at their game versus JDG, they went through a very skirmish-heavy style of picking the Camille, picking champions that will look to fight them as often as possible, and using things like Zoe to try and catch off guard and to actually try and take advantage of their poor positioning.
And it's interesting to see, especially in this best of 5, because what's always cool is when you see breakdowns like this, is the things you don't notice about when great teams play, right? Like in Raz's breakdown and in what we may expect of these 2 teams. We haven't really gotten a chance to talk about what our expectations is for the team-wide play and the approaches of both of these teams holistically. Yamato, what do you think?
I think the crazy thing, what makes Damwon so strong in my eyes, is just the level of activity. They can raise it when they're in a position where they're not dominant, and then the moment they are dominant, they play in a very precise way. They play to their win conditions, and they don't throw away leads. I think everything is going to come down to the early game. I think G2, their strength is when things get too crazy in the mid to late game, but the question is, can they do that against a Damwon that has been so precise in those states of the games?
And both teams have kind of shown that they are willing to let the early game go in the direction of the other team because they choose when to strike. The question is, who can execute that better, and can Damwon do that versus G2? And maybe more important, can G2 let that happen from the side of Damwon? And there's so much maybe in terms of what you're used to doing or what you've done in the previous best of 5 or in the previous games that can be turned on its head. You said before, stylistically, DRX for Damwon and Genji for G2 was perfect for them to beat them. Stylistically, what do we have in our hands here?
Well, I think we have precision on one side and the ability to make chaos on the other. I think the G2 have such an intelligent and effective mid-game, but their weakness potentially comes in the early game. And personally, I think that many analysts think that Damwon is favored because of that precision that you get. They have reliable laners, they know how to get leads, and they know how to hold on to those leads. But I am betting on G2 being able to disrupt the mid-game. I'm betting on them being able to plan well, get good drafts in, and rely on that vast experience that they have. And that's also why I'm going to predict G2 to win this series.
Oh, you've just set that up. We had a little bit more time, but run the predictions. Let's do it. We also had the Twitter be added to the graphics, so I'm wondering what they voted for. Verius, you
Leo,
just said
G2.
that you voted. Oh, I think it's animating in, actually.
Yes.
Yamato, you can go first.
I can go first.
Or second.
Second.
Well, I think
well, yeah.
What's your prediction? Tell us. I just did my thing.
My prediction is 55% in Damwon's favor, 45 G2. I think In terms of the eye test and the things that we can measure, I think Damwon went out on many of those metrics, and I think just jungle is the most important one. I think Canyon is going to be the big difference maker for Damwon's whole tournament run. While G2, they are the master of the things that are tougher to measure. Preparation, experience, mental edge. These are key things in best of fives and deep runs in the tournament. And I think if G2 is going to take this away, it's going to come down to these key things that they have over anybody else in this tournament. But Damwon, they've been so precise. They've been playing the same meta for a long time, and I think that just makes them so dangerous.
Yeah, it makes them super dangerous. And Twitter, what did you vote? Show us. Let's see. 3-0 G2. Never change, Twitter. Never change. They've got some faith at least. It's going to be incredibly difficult for G2 up versus Damwon when a spot in the final is on the line tonight as Damwon look to get their revenge on G2 finally.